the Vice President of Unidev, President of Permanent Impact. Thrilled to have people here to see us tonight and talk a little bit about our Splunk product that we've just become recently a integration partner and a resale partner for. Let me tell you about these events first. First of all, we have what's called Tea Exchanges every month. We have one in Las Vegas. We also have one in St. Louis. We try and have topics that interest a variety of our different clients, small intimate settings, lots of questions, beverages, food, etc., and hopefully a lot of camaraderie as well. They vary anywhere from international marketing to Google Analytics seminars to we had Splunk in Las Vegas last month at our office there, and having the Splunk event here as well for our St. Louis customers. Our goal really is to share information and to share knowledge. And we really think that information is most valuable when shared. And so our approach to all these Tea Exchange events is to make sure that we get content out there we think our customers, our prospects, and even the public at large might find interesting and find some way to make what they do a little better and help what we're trying to do in the St. Louis marketing community here as well, technology community. We have with us today David Mesler, who's the Principal Sales Engineer for Splunk Incorporated. We also have John Herzog, who John's in sales. You probably don't want to ask John a lot of questions that are technical. You go to David for all that kind of stuff. He's all small sales stuff. You know how sales guys are. Oh wait, I do that too. It's all good. That's all good. Right. If you want to, if you're following along with Twitter, we have a hashtag for this called Splunk STL. Splunk SPLUK, which stands for Splunk, right? Where it came from originally. STL. If you're on Twitter also, I'm TNI Man. We also have Impact at Unidev. Please follow us, give us your information, we'll share back with you again. We're going to turn this over to these two gentlemen to make a presentation about Splunk. I can tell you two things. Everybody's talking about big data, big information. How do my information's getting bigger and bigger, getting out of hand. What do I do with it? How do I sort it? How do I read it? How do I react to it? Well, Splunk's the best product we've seen so far that really answers all those questions. And I think with that, it's been their phenomenal growth. Splunk's grown from my first year of...
5 years ago, they had 600,000 in sales for their first sale, and 4.5 to 5 years later, they did 160 million.
160 million? That's that you. Let's see. I'm not real good at graphs, but I think that goes like that. So, not a bad trend. Very viral. Everybody we talk to knows Splunk. Its penetration in most major businesses and government and education has been absolutely phenomenal. And that's for a reason. It really works, and it's one of those groundbreaking technologies that is a game changer for a lot of people that are actually trying to make the best use of the data. So, with no further ado, I'll turn it over to you, gentlemen. Typically, we run till about 7 o'clock. You can run till you want to. You'll be here to answer questions afterwards a little bit if you'd like to as well.
Absolutely.
And we'll also make available the broadcast of this presentation to everyone who is here as well, and just be able to follow up and ask some questions each other. So, David and John, please.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
So as Steve had mentioned, my name is John Herzog. I'm the sales executive for Splunk, and Dave Maisland, my systems engineer. We roll together everywhere. We're on the road 4 or 5 days a week. Fortunately enough, we both live here in the St. Louis area, so that's why this is here together. So kind of our agenda, and what our agenda is always pretty fluid. Like to have interaction, so questions, throw them out there. Let's get them answered, right? I hate a crowd that's going to sleep on me. I don't know that. I'm sure it won't. So I'll go ahead and start here. What I'm going to do is give you maybe a 5-10 minute overview of what Splunk is, what it does, and really the baseline use case for probably what most people would use it for. And then Dave's going to really give a deep dive of all this other stuff that Splunk can do. And once again, if you got use cases or questions, throw them out there and we'll walk through. Right, Dave, anything to add to that?
No, it's going to be an easy, high and low level presentation for all people of different technology skills and backgrounds. It'll be easy to follow.
Okay. So most of you have probably been in IT or have dealt with IT for a long time. I know I've been in IT since I got out of the Marines. I was telling most of you. I went straight to EBS, and I didn't even know what a computer was at the time. But I've been doing this for a long time, and anybody that's been in IT really can recognize these different silos of data. And what I mean by that is, you've got an application, you've got hardware, you've got routers, you've got switches. Each one of them resides in their own little silo. If you get a problem with any one of those, you're going to have to go correct through logs to figure out what happened, That's right? A lot of companies have purchased a substantial infrastructure around monitoring tools the last 20 years, the EMCs, the HPs, right, the Timberlings. The problem with those tools are it's only going to tell you you're down. I'm not going to tell you why you're down. Splunk is really the why engine. Why you got a problem? Why is that router not working? Why is that application slow? Okay? So what we do better than anybody else, and once again, this is just a use case, not the all-encompassing, but a use case, is we suck in the exhaust of all these systems. All your hardware, all your applications, they're all kicking off logs or data. Dave always corrects me, he doesn't want me to just say log files, but it's data. It doesn't matter. It's any data. So I'll give you a good for instance of what I mean by that. Everybody here is carrying a smartphone. You're all kicking off data right now. Your smartphone's telling Sprint where you're at, right? That's data, okay? So we can take all that data in and make sense of it and be able to come to a resolution 90% of the time at the service desk level. What does that mean? So every company that you can imagine has a help desk. And they all have IT environments. We're going to talk about this, right? Anybody that thinks their company is not driven by IT or at least has an influence on IT is very naive, right? Everybody has a help desk. And that help desk has somebody on there answering a phone call when there's a problem. And every one of them I've ever talked to, they go, I really don't know what you're talking about. I'm going to escalate this, right? We've all heard that. And he's going to escalate to all these people, right? He has no idea what the hell the problem is. With Splunk, we can resolve that and tell him within seconds. It is a database problem. It's a router problem. And here's what's going on with it, right? When you're talking, I'll talk about some use cases where we've done this for customers. When you're talking about companies who have thousands of help desk tickets a day, if you can reduce it by 90%, it's huge. There's a huge cost savings. So go back to the basics. It's all about ingesting machine data. Once again, your smartphone's kicking off data. In the future, think of this, data on a whole is going up because sooner or later your refrigerator is going to be kicking off data. Your microwave, your car. A lot of cars are already kicking off data. I know mine does. I know his does. They're all kicking off data. So literally, in the future, companies who sold you stuff will be able to call you up and say, you're about to have an outage on your microwave. We're going to send you a new part, or we're going to send you a part for it, or we're going to send you a service man out for it. And you're going to go, I didn't even know I had a problem. Right? Splunk is set up to be that engine to drive all that. Right? All makes sense so far? So like I talked about here, most people, most companies use it from an IT standpoint. But me and Steve talked about, there's a lot of companies in healthcare who are using it from, well, what type of illnesses do you have in a certain geographic area? What type of outbreaks? We've all seen, I think most of us have seen the movie Contagion. So a little map turned red, right? Splunk, we do that for companies already. Right? The CDC is a big customer of Splunk. We can show outages or we can show outbreaks across the country for different types of influenza, smallpox, you name it, sepsis, what we talked about. So it's not limited, and the point here is it's not limited to IT. You can stick anything in a Splunk and be able to report on it very quickly, in a matter of seconds. So how do we do it? Literally, we pull in all your machine data. Doesn't require any connectors. Everybody in this room can literally go out after this, download Splunk in about 10 minutes, have an input to it, whether it's a smartphone, a microwave, whatever, and be able to Splunk your data with no connectors, no schema, no database on the back end, and it's any data, right? And there's no limit. So we all have heard of Salesforce and Facebook. I'm sure everybody here is on Facebook. Facebook is doing 25, 30 terabytes of data a day. What does that mean? They're pulling all your stuff out of Facebook and they're smoking, right? And the reason why they did it originally was all these games on Facebook, like Zynga, right? The World of Warcraft, they were catching the cheaters by using Splunk to catch the cheaters, right? And now they're pulling all this other stuff. So Apple, everybody's probably Apple has got iPhones here. They're using Splunk to Splunk the iCloud. So if you've got your data up in the iCloud, Splunk is there to manage that for Apple, right? So we already talked about the reactive. Literally everybody can do that as soon as they walk out the door, 10 minutes. That same stuff you just figured out that you've been having problems with for years, you can now go and say, I don't want that to happen again. I want to be proactive and be notified that I got a problem that's happening with my application that's slowing down. Or I got a router that's showing these patterns right before it blows up every time, and it's about to blow up again. That's how we proactively keep companies up 100% of the time. All right, now I'll show you some use cases here shortly on that. In addition, use cases, a lot of companies, the government, telcos, use us to capacity plan. So when you first set up Splunk, you can pull in all your log data from an IT standpoint from the beginning of time. It'll show you how many users you had, how much hardware you had, how much applications you had. So with Splunk, you can easily say, well, hey, based on all that, instead of me making a decision in a void, this is what amount of data or IT environment I need, right? We have telcos using this a lot to how many users they have, where wireless towers are located, all that capacity planning stuff that's important.
Think about if a hacker, you just discovered that he broke into your company network. Sure, you just discovered it, but how long has he actually been in your network? And how many machines has he accessed? And how do you trace it back across time? Since Splunk is this time series data system that allows you to ingest data against all time, you can find the root cause of what happened, when it happened, and go back in time and see every single thing that was affected. Think about how a virus propagates a network. And it doesn't have to be just IT data is the big thing here. When we were at a couple companies here, since we're on video broadcast, I'm not going to say which ones, but a lot of times they challenge us because it is a very simple product. It is technology, but at the same time, it's very simple to use. The IT director, he said, show me, typically we see, who's attacking our network, who is the hackers that are trying to break in, and what he said was, no, we're an American-based company. Show me if any of my employees are going outside the United States and what websites they're visiting outside the US, and plot it on a map for me and do it now. In about 30 seconds, we did that, and we showed him on a map every employee in his company where they were visiting, and he pointed to one place randomly. He goes, who is that? And it was Turks and Caicos, is where he wanted to know who's going there and why. So we traced it back and instantly pulled up an IP address, and I said, you want to know who it is? We can also map your assets. All the computers that you have are owned by people in your company. You have probably an Excel spreadsheet or a database or a CMDB system that tracks all this. Let's feed that into Splunk and correlate the data together. So now we not only have the IP address that went out to Turks and Caicos, we know whose laptop it was, their phone number, their address, their business unit, their department, everything. So and they said, well, hold on a second. I said, yeah, well, here's the NetBIOS ID, here's the IP, here's the computer name, who is it? He said, well, that's our CEO. But he's not here. His laptop's on his desk. And how is it possible that his laptop has gone to Turks and Caicos? So they ran over to his office, they shut his laptop down, and they're all freaking out. They're like, we got to scan this, we got to clean the laptop, we got to figure this out. And they bought Splunk for sure. But what the funny story was, is the CEO comes back to the office, and they were telling this story, like the one I just conveyed to you. He says, that's really funny. He says, because that was me. He says, I was on vacation in Turks and Caicos. I was back on my computer over the VPN, getting to my bookmarks on my browser because I forgot all the places I bookmarked where we were going to be on vacation, and just shut me off. But it was really funny. The things that we do, my son is in the military, and again, non-IT data, 21-year-old boy who plays video games and spends money. That's his life. And he says, Dad, I'm broke. I cannot figure this out. I'm so broke. Why am I broke? And I said, well, let's figure it out. So we downloaded his checkbook register from the internet directly into Splunk. And we splunked his checkbook register, and we categorized it, built a pie chart, and we categorized and trended out his spending habits over time. And sure enough, it was like 90% video game, was his expense. And all the money, all the loans he had taken out over the year were equivalent to the $3,000 in non-sufficient fund penalties that he had paid to the bank. My daughters going to school, they're teenagers. As every parent with teenagers knows, you have your kids, how much time are they spending online? Where are they going to? How can I figure this out in my little home network on my wireless router? I can do that. And boy, can I do that. And my daughter would complain that, her teachers aren't teaching her well enough. She's always tired, And I said, well, you spend far too much time online. No, I don't. Everything's an argument. And so I graphed it out for her. I showed her all the activity, every website, and over time, how much time she was spending online. It was equivalent probably 7 to 8.5 hours every single day after school. She was just sitting on her Mac, online, on YouTube, on every single website you could imagine. It was very addictive, and I realized, wow, I didn't even know you were staying up that late. Once they go to bed, you think they went to bed. They don't go to bed. So again, I just want to convey that everything from that to RFID devices like baggage scan at airlines when they're scanning bags. Certainly you could scan and see the hardware state, the fan speed, the temperature of the unit. All that is data. But what if you could map that to employee productivity as well? And employees using that specific device. Who's the most productive employee? Who's scanning the most bags in my company? And if I could also scan the badge access to every door and physical access to my security systems, I can see how long people are leaving for lunch. So again, Big Brother on steroids. I just wanted to open your minds a little bit, help you understand that it is so much more than troubleshooting. It is the big game changer. It answers the questions that you've always wanted to answer. And it helps you visually see this with zero technology experience. If you don't know how to use technology, you can still use Splunk. Sorry about that, but I just wanted to.
It's all good, man. So finally, from a use case standpoint, that same slice of data that I mentioned before can be used with lookup tables for a CEO, a CIO, COO to be able to provide state of business real-time dashboards, all based on that same slice of data. So they can show products, they can show how much revenue is coming in that day, how many users were added, how many users were lost, how much is this IT outage costing them, right? All the important stuff that they always have somebody in the closet with a spreadsheet trying to figure out, right? Just a couple of use cases I'm going to turn over today. We talked about the reactive. Salesforce, a good example of how we did this. They had about 2,000 help desk tickets a day. Day one, we reduced that by 90%. The cost savings basically paid for itself, paid for Splunk the very first day they had it. Now, they have, 4 years later, over 500 Salesforce individuals logging into Splunk for all the different use cases we talked about, the proactive, the capacity planning. Literally, they want to see your experience on Salesforce. They're doing that with Splunk today. We talked about the proactive. Macy's is a good example of that. We've all been to Macy's, right? They have an online presence. They were having considerable outages with their infrastructure. And they literally had the old methodology, red light, green light. And once again, that's just you're up or down. With Splunk, we came in, we're able to evenly across the board keep them up at the same time, even with 50% growth. Very good use case. We do this for a lot of online retailers. Some of the biggest that you can name are using Splunk today. Almost every telco in the country and in the world is using Splunk in one form or fashion. Call detail records for an instance. Literally, somebody calls a call center, they got a phone problem. They use Splunk to manage that call detail record. To say that was a quality call, this was not a quality call, here were the reasons why, right? Maybe the actual connection was bad, maybe the call intent was bad, based on these things, right? Not only that, we can provide real-time dashboards to show them when something went wrong, right? So we've all done it, we had to get a new device, we had to configure it, right? You've had to start that damn thing up and get it to go the way it should go. You can work with Splunk to tell Sprint or AT&T you're having problems, right? He's trying to do it 3 or 4 times. He's having problems. Somebody ought to call his cell phone or call his other number because he's having problems. That's what we do, right?
Local company here, it's not a slide that we have, but a good story. I'm working with them now. Set-top boxes, Charter, you know, Cox Communications, everybody has them, but they're computers. You know, they have logs and they generate data, and they're using Splunk now to see everything. Viewing habits, how often you change the channel, how long you stay on a commercial, how many season passes you have. When you call technical support, you're having a problem with your box, they correlate the logs of you calling into the call center with your ID to the box that you own instantly. And they can actually see up to the second every single thing that your box was doing before you had the problem, before it crashed, before it had the crash screen where it rebooted itself. And I'm working with them now. We're building all those beautiful dashboards so that their tech support can literally say, aha, we see your box, we see the problem, we can solve that right away, or we'll ship you a new box because you have a bad piece of hardware. So that's a good story of a local company using us for that very reason.
So final use case slide, we talked about capacity planning, we talked about different usages. Everybody here has probably used a Cisco product, right? We've all had Cisco routers or iron port switches, you name it. They come out of the box with Splunk behind the scenes. Splunk dashboard behind the scenes. You call Cisco up today or iron port up today and tell them, hey, we've got this product of yours. Cisco Mars, for example, they'll tell you, go buy Splunk. The Splunk already built your dashboard. So you've got core Splunk that they will get into this in a minute, which is nothing more than a Google-looking toolbar. And on top of that, there's dashboards. They're just nothing more than views of the data that's coming in. For instance, Cisco devices are sending in data. We built dashboards built to pull that data in and show you exactly what you need to know from a Cisco standpoint, from an iron point standpoint. We've got 248 apps today, nothing more than dashboards, nothing more than views of all the things you're probably using today. Okay? Then we'll dig into that a lot further. We've got about 3,500 customers. We've been in business 6.5 years. Like we talked about at the beginning, we should do $160 million in revenue this year. And great place to be.
It is. It's a big community. We did file our S1 to go public a couple months back, and one of the statements they made is they've really not seen anything like Splunk in terms of the community. We think of a product that we use. A lot of them are complex. You need help. You have to call help desk, and you get basically your only support is technical support, and that's it. Splunk's community is 80 to 100,000 people that you can connect with interactively live in real time. Chat with them. We have online chat rooms. They will help you. If you say, hey, has anybody ever done X, Y, and Z? Built a report to help me Splunk. Who's twittering about me? Yes. And they will say, here you go. You've even done it. You know, has anybody ever Splunked Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube videos, most popular videos, most popular online radio stations? Yes. There is an application for that. And the key thing I want to be clear about is Splunk, with all this data, and again, I'm going to show it to you, we'll build all these dashboards. And an app is nothing more than a collection of pre-built dashboards. Nothing more. There isn't this compiling and complex logic. You can point, click, and build an app in about 2 to 5 minutes, probably, you know, any given dashboard. So let's actually show you. I'm going to sit down, and we're going to start using Splunk.
So before that, any questions on any of the stuff I covered?
I'm not going to do any more PowerPoints, so we're going to do live product. All right. So when you first log into Splunk, this is what you see. It's a search bar. Search bar, much like Google, that allows you to search against time, in real time, within a 30-second window of time. As data is coming into Splunk, you can search it as it's coming in. You don't even need to wait. You'll literally be able to search as the data is hitting the box. It is that real time. So this search bar allows you to search for anything that you want. You don't have to think, do I need to know a programmatic language or anything? We have all that too. But the wonderful thing I love about Splunk is it works for the novice, it works for the developer. If you want to use a programming language and search with complex trend analysis searches and Excel calculations, you can do that. If you don't, and you just know a keyword that you want to type, Let's just do an example. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to type. Let's say somebody calls up, I'm having a problem getting to your website. You know, that's pretty typical, you know, it's down or something. So as I type, the search is type ahead. It's showing me how many times it's finding matches, even before I hit return, within all the data that it's consumed. When you think about it, when you hit a website, you're not just hitting one little machine. You're going through their network across firewalls on a web server to a back-end application server, through load balancers to a back-end database that has mounted file systems of disk units. There's like 20 components to hitting a website that you just never think about, you know, as an average consumer. They just think they're going to that one machine on the internet, and that is not the case. You have a question?
Yes. Can you tell us a bit about what is that data set that you are working with right now, and what is the setting? Where is the data coming from, so we can understand what you are searching?
Yeah, we're going to actually show you that in just a minute. It's actually, I lay it all out there. I have a slide for that as well, right built into an app. So I'm going to just start to type here, 10.2.1.44, and we already know there's 8 matches. It showed that as I was typing it. And I'm just going to hit return. See how many times did I find that IP address, you know, in the search. So I just hit return, and you're going to see 0 matching events, 8 matching events. Now I see logs. Computer logs. It's kind of ugly though. You know, non-technical people would not know what this is. I know every piece of that log. I know exactly what that is. You know, this is an Apache web server, you know, an open source, you know, server. But if I want to say, all right, what do I want to see about this specific IP address? Maybe I want to see that they called me up and they said, well, I got a 503 error when I was on your website. It said like service unavailable. I know it found it 8 times. I already know that it found it 8 times. But perhaps I want to do more than that. Maybe I want to see how many times did they hit the website by session ID. When you hit a website, you get unique session IDs. Maybe I want to graph that, you know, top values over time or something like that. Maybe I want to see what products were they searching for on my website in real time. What product IDs did they see? And all of these fields that you're seeing over here on the left are automatically built from within logs. If you don't have a normal log, if it's a custom log, you can create your own fields by simply extracting fields with highlighting a certain word in the log and saying, that's my field. So whatever you want to do, you have the ability to say, all right, product names, I'm a website, I sell something online, I want to know, you know, what are the top products for sale online? Build me a chart. You know, what's it going to look like? I don't like that format. I want to do it in a pie chart. That's more like it. I like that. That's a, you know, so you literally can think of Google, what Google provides you, and how easy it is. Everybody Googled, but nobody ever had to take a class. You know? So now I want you to think, what do you do when you get data? Well, you get a lot of computer data, scientific data, whatever it is, revenue data. You copy it, you put it into Excel, and then you run all the formulas and the charts, and they're manual charts. They don't change. They're very static. Think about a company with their financial numbers. At the end of every quarter, they have all the bean counters at $100 an hour in a room, doing all the analytics, putting it into those spreadsheets to come up with a financial report. If I could watch what they did, what SQL commands they ran against the database, against Oracle Financials to generate those data, I can tell Splunk to do exactly the same thing. I can say Splunk every day at 8 a.m., run the SQL query against the database, pull it into Splunk, generate the charts, and send this graph over email to the executive staff so they can see real time or every hour the financial state of their company. You can do that type of thing with Splunk. So you build these charts, and this is just one example. And so other things you can do is you could say, all right, well, since this is client IP, I'm going to click that right there. I'm just going to click it and say, show me just this IP address, and watch what happens at the top here. It added it right to my search bar. So I'm pointing and clicking. I still haven't really typed anything, but what I could do is change this up a little bit. Once you get to play with the data, you get to understand how easy it is to modify this. Think about if I wanted to search for all IP addresses in my company, you know, and I want to see every IP address that's hitting my website right now, client IP equals star. All right, so once we do that, you're going to get to graph the IP addresses, and you know, and then you can plot them on a map as well. That's the wonderful thing about Splunk. If you wanted to see, and let me bring up another example, everything that's happening in your network on a map in real time, you can do that with Splunk. You can plot it, you can bring it up in real time, you can make. I'm just showing you different examples of the types of visualizations that you can build with typical Splunk. And in this case, with the search bar, you can do any kind of search. And from there, once you build the kind of search that you're looking for, and then you say, now what I want to do is I want to take that and I want to build myself my graph. However you want to build that graph, your dashboard is created on the fly, whatever type of chart that you want. And from here, let's build it out, make it look a little prettier here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I just say create a dashboard panel. It's that simple. Once you do that, you're basically saving that search. You say, that's the search I like, this gives me the kind of information I want, and I'm going to call it IP address search. Who's hitting my website? Think of Google Analytics. What time frame do you want it to search within? You can say last month, a year, real time. I'm going to hit next. From there, I'm going to create a new dashboard and call it my dashboard. And I could keep it private. Maybe it's just my personal dashboard that I don't want anyone else to see. And remember, we're receiving a lot of data. The one thing I want you to be clear about is that you can segregate the data by role. You can say that the network team has access to the network data, the financial team has access to the financial data, the marketing team, they get only the web analytic data, and they can only search 2 weeks back, and that's it, not against all time. And the security team, they can search everything. So we have very granular role-based access control within Splunk. So I'm going to finish building this dashboard. I'm going to hit next. And you can change things on the fly if you decided to make it a table or something else last minute, and hit finish. Once you do that, you can visually see that you're going to have a dashboard. I'm going to actually bring up the dashboard now. There's your dashboard. It's going to build it on the fly. And you say, you know, this is good, but you know, I don't have to set up for this on this thing. But you could say, people don't have to log into Splunk. If you built something useful, you could say, now that I've built the report, schedule it for delivery and send it out every 8 hours to the team with a point of a button. But you say, I'm not done. I want to edit this because this isn't good enough, and I want to add another panel. So you can just literally say, here we go, I'll add one. Errors. And I'll just hit, based on some saved search that you've saved before, save that. And it'll rebuild the dashboard. Now we have 2 panels on the fly. And you say, well, this dashboard is good, it's still not perfect, because I want this to be over here, like that. And when that shows me the results there, I'll display that. And once I'm done editing, because now I built a table and a little chart, I'll just turn off editing.
So Dave, just one thing to add for everybody's understanding. In addition to the dashboards, you can send these in an RSS feed to different devices like this. So if you walk into Magellan Health today, you'll see 20 of these screens up on the wall, all with real-time dashboards with data coming in. It's all Splunk behind the scenes. The other thing I was going to ask, maybe there in the audience here, there's somebody who has an idea of other dashboard that they might want to see or would like to build that we could show them after we're done.
Yeah, so let's, so what I've just done here, these dashboards, that's an app. Okay, so I just want to be clear that there's nothing complex about this. It's as simple as you point data to Splunk. Splunk does not require any pre-planning. We think of the old database days. Get a database guy, one of those experts, have the guy who understands SQL and structured query languages and SQL commands. All the complexity is gone. Splunk has no database. You point data at Splunk, it does a map reduce, and it stores the data that you send it in the original format right on the file system on the directory. There's no magic here, and it's called map reduce. That's what Google does. Google does the same thing. We scale to any size because we don't require any complex architecture. But the one thing is these apps that I talk about. Splunk has a website, Splunk.com, where not only when you go to Splunk.com can you just do a free download of the software and use it yourself for your personal use, for companies, whatever you want to do, but these apps right on Splunk base allow you to extend the functionality of Splunk. If you have a certain bit of technology, let's say you decided that, I don't know, I'll just type something, you want to Splunk the internet. It's not just logged in, it's not machine in, you want to Splunk YouTube. and you want to see what are the most popular videos on YouTube. Or maybe you're a sports fanatic and you want to know, football statistics or baseball statistics. Because we are a beautiful statistical engine that allows you to do all the aggregation, correlation, all the formulas, you can literally click on anything that's interesting to you. These are community apps. Our community has built these for your use. Then you can say, all right, I'm going to log in to my account. You log in with your account. I'm going to type in my ID. And I'm going to install an app in front of you, just to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to go to the app menu within Splunk itself and do the same thing. You saw me go to the website where I can get an app. Go right here and say, find more apps. And pick whatever technology you want. Cisco, F5, Microsoft Exchange, Active Directory, Sonic Wall, any type of thing. If you want to monitor your Windows environment, your Linux environment, if you want to plot every IP address on a map like you just saw me show you a minute ago, you download an app. That's what these apps are for. So I'm just going to download the football one. Install free. That's just like an iPhone app installation. There's very little to it. You log in. And you're done. The app is going to be installed. Now I can go right to my app menu and I can go to my football app, which is very unique because this is not getting data that's on a computer that's local. This is going to an internet website, pulling the data directly from the website in real time, and displaying the results in front of you, whether it's the whole website itself or the entire news feeds from every football website that's out there. Think of what you can do with something like this.
So just imagine this, and then we have customers that do this today. They take stuff, materials, and they build stuff. And they go out and Splunk all the places that they get their materials. For instance, flour to make cakes. And they'll go out and Splunk those websites to get the lowest cost per flour, and that's where they do their purchases from. Or, another good example is people who are in the recycling business. Big recyclers go and sell their different alloys over to China, whoever's buying at the highest amount. So they go Splunk who's paying the most, and that's who they sell to. We're very big in exchanges. If you go to Chicago Mercantile or any of the big trading companies, all Splunk dashboards up here.
So let's show you some data for a more technical audience here. So let's say you're on a Unix machine and you're running a command called top. Anyone ever hear of top? Okay, we've got one guy in the back.
I forgot.
Basically, what top does is shows you the top commands that are running in Splunk. So think of even a mainframe report, the old mainframe COBOL reports and the print keys that you get on a piece of paper at the end of the day. It's just unstructured ugly data on a page. It might look a lot like that with a report with column headers. Splunk is this data manipulation engine. So what I can do is take that data you're seeing on your screen, and again, this is where, if you're technical, you might want to use some of our more interesting commands. I want to just get the first result, the most current result, head 1. And now it's only going to show me one result. But this data is not in a format that I can use. If this was a spreadsheet, I would have to copy those columns into Excel and then be able to graph by column. With Splunk, you have the ability to take the column headers directly off and turn them into fields over here on the left. So, and then it'll turn every line of that command now into its own unique event. So now I can actually see, if this was 100 machines in my Unix environment or my Windows environment, every command that is currently running in my environment in real time. So what I want to do with that? Well, I want to know, first off, let's get rid of all the duplicate commands that are going to be running. So get rid of all duplicates. And let's also create a table with the word table, really hard command there, of all the commands that are running by user and the percent of the CPU that they're using on my machine because they're running a really heavy application. They're running downloading too much music, and build a table. So it's a data manipulation engine like you've never seen before. Anything you ever wanted to do with any type of data, You can build a table, you can build a chart, you can build a bar chart, or if you're getting an error on your site and you want to alert on it, you want to get an email when some event happens, you're watching for some person to log into some account because he's a hacker or he's some important customer, whatever you want to alert on, you can do that with Splunk also out of the box. So let's give you an example. John, this is not my typical demo because I love my Mac, so I'm just showing you this is how we're doing it everywhere. But let's go back to just a bunch of IP addresses. The one we did earlier. Oops, the spelling error, so we won't have any results there. And we'll search again for an IP address. And we actually see, 8 events over the time. I just set this up an hour ago before I showed up for this meeting. This is a brand new install. Not a lot of data in here. But if I say, I want to know when action equals purchase, you can click on this and then just click on the actual word and it'll adjust your search on the fly for you. And you say, okay, this is a good search for me. Now I know when this IP address, some guy, maybe it's a user ID equals John Smith, action equals purchase. What I want to do is create an alert. And so what we're going to do here is save it, okay? Purchase from customer in real time. So as soon as this happens, I want to know about it. Send me an email and send it to me at gmail.com, whatever you want to do, with a custom subject, and include the results of the search right in line in the email. So instantly, the second that person triggers some event in your company, notify it. Let's imagine instead it's a disk error, that's crashing everything. Well, maybe you'd want to run a script to add more disk space because he's out of disk space. So instead of thinking all I'm getting is a passive email alert after it happened, you could say, when disk is 80% full, run a script to increase the disk space by 10% and send me an email alert. So do proactive events based on what you find within Splunk, any data you want to feed it. So you can run scripts, you can save everything in Alert Manager, you can set criticalities, and maybe it's someone doing maintenance. And what you want to do is, you're certainly going to get the alert because some system might be offline. So you could say when host equals 1.2.3.4 or a host name or whatever you want to say, then don't send me an alert for the next 45 minutes while he's fixing something, so you can throttle on the alerts as well. So you've seen me run searches, you've seen me build a couple dashboard panels, you've even seen me download an app. And what I'm going to do now is also show you some other apps. Like if you were an IT person and you need to troubleshoot all the servers that are running your databases and everything, we have an app for that. And this app will let me see things like, I want to see the CPU by process, let's say. If I click that, it's going to generate a beautiful graph and show me on this specific server everything that's happening in real time and graph it all out for me. So I actually can see, and you can now see that it's a very stunning presentation of information, but it's nothing more than data graphed in a dashboard, displayed as an area chart, displayed as a table. And then they save it and call it an app. It is that simple to use this product. Are there any questions so far as I go through this? Yes?
We talked a little bit about social media before and creating social media.
Yes.
Can you show a use case perhaps?
Yeah, let's do that now. Okay, so let's go find more apps online, and we'll download a Facebook app. And the Facebook app was written by one of our employees at Splunk, I believe. And you want to monitor maybe your own Facebook account. And again, it's just data to us. So let's install the app. Now, since I've already logged in, I don't have to log in again. The app is installed. It's really that fast. Once I install it, you're ready to use it. It might once in a while ask you to restart the interface because of some cool new dashboard capabilities like it's doing. So we'll just restart Splunk. And now we'll be Splunking Facebook. And then we can add Twitter to it, and we can add Vimeo, and we can add internet radio. We can add traffic. A lot of our PS guys that travel, they want to know the traffic conditions in the morning before they wake up without having to go all over the internet and search. They built apps just for traffic by city, sorted by accident severity, and delay. So we built a dashboard just for traffic. So yeah, the flexibility is crazy. Wait for this to restart. Any other questions while we're waiting for this to restart?
What's the Facebook app?
We're going to find out, are we?
I think after that, you ought to show them what the intelligence app that you run, because that's a very good example of how you can use Splunk to manage an online website.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. This is a good story for everybody. So when I first moved to Missouri about 7 years ago now, I'm from Arizona. I didn't really know what there was to do. I have a family. We live in the middle of the forest and wildwoods, so I was like, there's just nothing to do here. And my wife was in publishing and advertising for children's magazines, but the publishing industry, is tanked, with paper printing, with the internet. And so I said, why don't you let me build you a website that helps people find all the events online in one place without having to go all over the internet. So I built that for her. It's not a plug for her website. This is merely me showing you how I use Splunk to give her the kind of data that she wants on her specific website. It's called stlsprout.com, St. Louis Sprout. And she has authors that write all original content. And then you can go and say, what's going on this weekend with an event calendar? So what her advertisers wanted to know is, click-throughs and impressions and displays of ads doesn't mean a lot, to be honest with all of you. I mean, it has value, but in reality, it could be a bot hitting your website that's pretending to be a human, and you don't know the difference. That's the big problem I have with it. Well, with Splunk, you're going to be able to do all that. So I'm just showing you here. Here's an event counter. If you want to know every single event that's happening today, you just see it in one place, and it builds a map and everything. So then, she comes to me and says, all right, this customer, the zoo, said they want to know who is looking at zoo events and going to come to the zoo, and what's the most interesting article that we published about the zoo. So let's go to that website. And I installed it right on her web server. Oops, let's see what I do wrong. Can't see. I think your network is blocking my port, so I can't get there. Darn it! All right, so I can't show that, but I'll show it locally. I'll give you a different example. That's too bad. I was really hoping to show you that, because it will give you the real-world use case. All right, their network here is restricting me from doing that. So let's bring this up, and I'll show it a different way. But what I built for her was dashboards that show by unique visitor every article that is being read within a given time period. And she can search by any word she wants, zoo, panda. And then I also had it graph out the calendar events, which events were people visiting the most. And then I plotted every single IP address on a map for her in the St. Louis area. So instead of just the zoo saying how many page impressions did we get, she can actually see user IDs, people's names, phone numbers, how many children they have, everything. It's total, Big Brother, but it's awesome. The capabilities that we have here. Let's bring this up here. Sorry for the little delay here.
Then, while that loads, I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's assuming that we have a data set with maybe 100 of inputs, and it's a temporal thing, goes over a long period of time. Can you identify the cause and effect of one input versus an output?
Yes, you can.
And can you describe more about that without naming which one is which?
Without naming which one is which.
So without looking at the data set and the stream of data,
yes.
I would like to know which one was the input, which one was the effect and the cause and effect. So for example, one input will be the cause, it creates a problem, and then the effect shows up in 3 or 4 steps later on another variable.
So Splunk has a wonderful command. Let's close this out. I think it's like this browser is
Turning.
it's just sitting here like I can't do anything with the browser right now. It's okay. So Splunk has a command called transaction. In fact, Splunk was originally built to monitor transactions and complex transactions across big data, not just for troubleshooting. And the command transaction is very unique because we think about some application that's writing logs, like in your case. There's going to be some unique identifier, the session ID, the unique identifier about that specific transaction, the user ID. So with Splunk, if you know something about that format, like all the logs for this specific set of 1,000 log lines start with the word start here, ends with the word ends here, Splunk has a command called transaction. So you can say, show me all data, pipe it through the command called transaction, starts with the word start, ends with the word end, and the field is called session ID. And it will take, let's imagine it's a web server, Facebook, that has 5,000 web servers, okay? When you hit Facebook, you don't know which web server you're on, okay? But the unique thing about it is your ID, your identifier, your login ID spans all of it. So how could you search 5,000 web servers to debug a problem? That would be very difficult. Splunk pulls all the data in from everywhere into Splunk, the engine, and then you could run it through a command. So let's do that. So we're going to launch the search app. And we have some data here. So let's pick something. It's interesting. We'll just pick on one of the logs that it received. I don't know anything about the data here. I'm just going to click it. And let it show me the result set. So we have this data. Test.net, name server information. It means absolutely nothing to me, because I've never seen this before. And you have all these fields that Splunk found about the data. Let me add them all. Now we have all these unique fields, like the process. We can see which processes we're running. And these are unique things, but perhaps, better yet, we pick one that has more useful information to relate to your thing. So web data. So I'm saying search Apache logs here. And now one of the unique things about web data is it has session IDs and unique identifiers. Here it is, session ID. So that would be unique. So what I could do is pick this one, let's say. And remember, it could be across 5,000 machines. And I could say, pipe this through the command called transaction, IJ session ID. Sorry to go real tech deep on you guys real quick here. But what's going to happen is Splunk will take the logs that could be on 100 machines from 100 places by a unique identifier and build me the footprints from the start to the finish in time series. So from the start to the finish. So now we can see it as one event. We see it started here when they logged into the website, and then we see it actually start on the bottom. They hit the website, and then the most current event that they hit, this is what they did next. So you get a transaction command. I think that should answer your question. And we can talk about that offline, but yeah, the idea is that Splunk is a very powerful engine. There is a wonderful command set to let you do a million different things with the data that you want, and you just kind of have to ask it. If you don't know what to ask, you're completely unfamiliar with Splunk, we have Splunk Base. Right on our website, we have the answers page. And what I want to point out here, when I clicked on the answers page, is these are updated 28 minutes ago, 31 minutes ago, and there's already 4 answers. So somebody posted a question. How do I do whatever? Where will your data take you? Whatever you have a question about, there's usually a question, it's already been asked. So that's, I wanted to show you that. So let's go back to the other thing which I was doing, which is Facebook. So let's go to Facebook. And stop this. Splunk for Facebook. Never seen this app before, just to be clear. So we're going to continue here. It's probably going to need to connect to Facebook. That's, we all do that with Facebook, so that's a given. I figured you would ask me that. Okay, so I'll log into my Facebook account.
Oh, that means.
I don't even use it. trying to remember my own password for Facebook. How pathetic.
We've got the keylogger running there.
Right.
And let's log in. So this is using a backend. If you're a developer, it's an API call directly to Facebook's API, and I'm going to allow Splunk to access Facebook. I don't have much. I hate to say that. I have like 10 friends on there. I don't Facebook. John's my friend. Alright, so let's click friends, see what it does. I'm not seeing it do anything. Did I not allow it? Obviously, it's showing a map of updates in my social network, but let me try to friends.
Dave, you need more friends.
It's a pretty empty map.
That was an empty map.
John's the sales. Use John's Facebook.
Let's try this. Let's try it on a different thing. This is fun. It's like getting to play like live with
Roulette. Okay, while Dave tries to determine why he doesn't have more friends, I just want to say that we're going to wrap up the live broadcast part of this at 7 o'clock. That's when we shut it down. We're doing all of our obligations to people there. But David and John, you'll be for a little while longer. Let's go through some of the presentations, see what we have. Has this been interesting so far? Has it been good information so far for everybody? Okay.
there we go.
Dave actually does have friends.
Seems like he's a friend with
There we go.
Okay.
He just went and bought
So
some.
we're going to shut down the broadcast not any time, but we're still here. Thank you.
Thank you.
He crowdsourced it.
So I guess, I've never used it before, but I guess it's going to like show updates of people doing things in my network, but I have such a huge Facebook community. But
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's not how those people are based on what they have on
I
Facebook.
don't think so. I mean, it's showing me like different users here. I don't know what the purpose of this app is, but I just wanted to show you that Splunk can really reach into anything. I know that's not the perfect example for what you're looking for, but it's just really flexible. You know, I mean, whether it's Facebook or whether it's a database. We were at a healthcare agency, and you know, whenever you think I need to generate a report, already it's a stressful situation because who do I ask, you know, to get this report? How am I going to create that report? Who's the guy who knows how to get the data from the database to give me the report that I want? And they basically gave me that. They said, David, here you are, create this report. And it was on claim statuses and how long claims have been sitting in a queue and which ones have been ignored and all these other things. And I know nothing about these claims. But I asked this database guy, I said, if I had to run a query to get this information, you know, what would that query be? And he gave me the query. And I told Splunk, run that query every 30 minutes. And the data, when Splunk logged into the database, ran the query, pulled it back into Splunk, and we generated graphs and charts and reports on healthcare claim statuses. And they said to us that they've been trying to do that for 2.5 years to get a real-time view of their data, but they didn't have the process. They had manual Excel spreadsheets and people that would create reports. And we did it for them in 20 minutes, probably? Yeah. You know, another one was, I went into another account. It was an agriculture company, and non-IT data, and he says to me, we can't even give you any connectivity because it's an IT security change control. We're not going to allow you access to any of our data. What can you show us? You know, I said, well, I don't know. Well, you know, if you can't give me, I tell you what, we'll give you a print queue of COBOL mainframe reports that are just a text file. What can you do with that? And so you saw me extract headers out of a column or data. So if he gave me a report, which already has the data there, the only thing I had to do was tell Splunk, here's where the columns are, build me a report. And the report was based on soybean moisture content. And show me by region of world, geo, how much moisture by farm and which ones have the least amount of moisture so we can prioritize the sale of those first before the soybeans that are full of moisture to get rid of the soybeans that are going to go bad. We built that in an hour. You know, and again, it's really, as John said, it's up to your imagination what you do with Splunk. If you have a need that you've always wanted to do, whether it's web analytics, which we can bring that up now.
Well, so going back to everybody here, is there any specific dashboards or use cases you guys would want to see? It might be more important than...
I track my wife.
There is a cheating wife out.
It's called Catch Your Cheating Spouse. What it does...
I think Tom's more interested in Catch My Spending Spouse than anything else, right?
But the app itself is interesting. You know why? Because it logs into your cell phone provider account, downloads all your cell phone data, and plots out calls and gives you a chart of calls by alias, by user. It absolutely shows you the names, who you're calling, which phone numbers have called which people, and everything. So yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. But yes, there's an app for that. That's the funny thing about it.
Well, Tiger's in trouble again.
But yeah, this is our web intelligence app, and I don't have a lot of data in here, so I don't know what it's going to show. Not seen this, you know, yet, so let's see if it even plots anything. Yeah, I don't have any data in here, but we do have Splunk for web intelligence, and you know, if you're paying for analytics today, a monthly cost, Omniture, or any one of these numbers of providers out there, you don't really need to, because we do it better. We have more data, and you can really build your own dashboards on anything you want without having to rely on the vendor. You don't need to call us. You don't need to call anyone. You can build all this stuff yourself.
Part of the real allure of Splunk is what it's capable of doing. Part of the real curse of Splunk is all the things it's capable of doing.
Right.
For example, it's replaced Omniture at NPR Radio as their analytics tool for the web system and for their IT areas. There are companies we've talked to that Splunk that are embedded. For example, Bank of America. We started we just were very lucky to bring on a technology like the vice president who worked previously at Bank of America as their director of e-commerce and as their director of mobile application development. And Kathy Harris is her name. I hope you all get a chance to meet her. She's a pretty sharp lady. And Kathy, there's a lot going on in this area of Bank of America that the rest of the company doesn't know about. So what it's capable of doing is so complex that it's part of its beauty and also part of its curse. So depending on whether you're coming at this from more of a retail perspective on analytics about your website or about your product mix, whether you're coming at it from a more IT perspective and infrastructure, we've just seen a lot from David, who was arrested in Argentina for that. Or whether you're coming at this from another, myriad of different ways. There are a lot of ways you can use the tool, and the complexity is also part of the beauty. But it's up to the imagination to a great degree of the IT team, of the developers, of the end users to come up with what the purposes are going to be, and therefore what that application is going to do. Is that true? Say more about that, or
almost every company we go into, we get the same response. Literally, the IT manager's going, where's the leopard contact? This is hocus pocus, right? It's all magic. And when we show him we can do it, he's like, where do I sign up? Well, the first thing that we do, typically, is we'll set and do an architecture session and go through all the tools they got today. With a couple of different Blue Cross Blue Shield accounts that we're going to, they got 20 or 30 things that we can use to replace or augment. That's going to basically pay for Splunk and save them millions of dollars. Huge, right? Go ahead.
What's the price?
It's all so from a pricing standpoint, unlike many other software packages, we're all based on the amount of log data per day. So we had talked about downloading the free version, and a lot of you probably thought, well, how do you guys make money? Well, you can use it for under 500 megabytes for free to the end of time. We don't care. We have companies like Facebook, like Signal, like Apple, who are doing multiple terabytes of data a day, and that's how we make our money. Right? So it is all based on the amount of gigabytes or terabytes that you might need from your company.
So the data is processed on the client's side or on your side?
On your side. So how much you ingest, you pull in.
Yeah, you can install Splunk on your laptop. You can
Okay.
install Splunk on a server. It's all local. We have a cloud service also if you want to use that too. We also provide that. You know, the way it works, if you're technical, you'll get what I'm saying here. Network devices. If you turn on syslog, you point syslog at Splunk, you'll be able to graph every bit of data about your firewalls, load balancers, anything that does syslog in under a minute and a half probably to set it up. If you don't have syslog, you don't know what I'm talking about, Splunk has a agent, it's called. Let's say you have a home network. I'll just give that example. And you are sitting at your laptop, you can install Splunk on your laptop. And then let's say you have another computer, you can install what we call our Splunk forwarder and say that laptop, whenever it's being used, forward everything that's happening on that laptop over to my Splunk server and let me graph that. You can do that as well.